Business isn't just numbers and strategies, it's deeply personal, listeners. It's about carrying a vision so bold that it sometimes feels bigger than you, isn't it? And it's also about daring to take the step when the staircase hasn't even revealed itself yet. Welcome back, listeners, to another brilliant episode on the Biz Blend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today I am joined by someone who knows that journey all too well. A small town girl from Rhode Island who was told she was too much, too bold, too curious, too loud. Well, she wore the white coat, built the clinic, and climbed every rung of the ladder. But success without alignment? She calls that a prettier cage. That's bold. And listeners, she burned it all down: the clinic, the titles, the people pleasing, and chose to build a life and business that actually fit. Now, as a boldness coach and founder of Love You Girl Media and Coaching, she helps visionary women stop shrinking and claim their own boldness. So, as we all sit together today, let's lean into what it really takes to believe in your vision through the trials, the pivots, and the falls. Because boldness isn't just about being loud, it's about being true. So, listeners, meet my lovely guest, Dr. Onaysia Martinez. So, Dr. O, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Hi, Sana. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh my goodness, thank you, Dr. O, because um, your your story it shouts out loud about, of course, being true, but there is some kind of a rebel in there, and I believe in business and entrepreneurship, it's quite an interesting journey. Sometimes we have to be rebel. We have to go against the norms, the traditions, and take big chances or risks. So yeah, of course, it's very inspiring. So let's begin with first how you talk about being too much as your superpower. Often sometimes we do not know about our superpower, but in business, Dr. O, too much, it often gets labeled as reckless. How do you draw the line between boldness and recklessness?
That's a great question to open up with because it's important to distinguish between reckless decision making and aligned, bold decision making. You know that you are operating in your boldness in the right way when your decisions are actually specifically aligned with your vision. Boldness is not about risk taking in a way that's going to lead you down a negative rabbit hole. It's about what is going to get you closer to that vision, closer to the life that you've been holding off on, and the legacy that feels too big for you to carry forward. So, what I teach my clients is how to actively keep that vision at the forefront of every decision, of every move, of every pivot, and allowing that to act as your North Star, as your compass, if you will. And as long as you do that, you really can't go wrong because that vision is what's going to guide you and it's going to guide you where you're meant to go.
Yeah, that's I think that's very well said. And I think everyone here can feel that tension, being told to tone down. Sometimes I also get that a lot. Um, versus feeling like, you'll suffocate if you do. And it's of course relatable because so many of us shrink, just to fit in the mold. And then um, unfortunately we realize that we have lost ourselves. And Dr. O, you literally shut everything down. You know, the clinic, the six-figure path before the staircase appeared. Now, if you can, I know it's difficult in such a short span of time, but if you can just give like a trailer, a glimpse of that journey, how it all unfolded. I mean, if you can.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, how it originally ended up happening was that I graduated as the first Latina doctor in my class, and I walked into my first corporate job shortly after that with the expectation that I was going to change the world and that my legacy would be to transform people's lives and to improve their health. Now, although it looks a little bit differently than I would have expected now, it's still in alignment with my original thought. And so, as I was in corporate, I just always had these big, grand ideas of different community programs that I wanted to start and different specializations that I wanted to dive into. Because I always knew that I wanted to stand out and I wanted to lead a movement. I wanted to break out of what healthcare was known as being. And just 3 months into that, I ended up getting an email from my boss, and none of us want to get the email, right?
Yeah. Yes, I know.
And the email basically said that I didn't fit in with the culture of the company and that my position had been terminated.
Oh.
And so originally, I had felt really defeated and just confused, right? Because I was like, okay, this is my vision. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be transforming people's lives. And the door is being closed. Now, where do I go? And so we all have this voice within us, right? That comes and goes, that whispers, that talks to us in the dead of night. And we try to ignore it. But at this point, I was seeking it and I was looking for it because I didn't know what my next move was going to be. And I felt like I was at a crossroads, either continue along with the blueprint that had basically taken everything from me or choose to be bold and go the road less traveled. And so I chose to be bold. And I threw together some equipment in a really teeny tiny office in Long Island, New York. And I just went for it. 3 months in, I ended up turning a profit in that clinic. And the voice came again. And it said to me, "Is this it?" And I know that a lot of women listening to this podcast have felt that same voice. Even if you're in a successful quote unquote position, a successful life or role, it doesn't feel successful if it isn't aligned with that inner voice and with your assignment that you're meant to make on this earth. So, long story short, I I saw the contradiction between what my vision was telling me, which was to speak, to motivate, to lead, and to activate in masses of people, and the environment that I was in, the business I was in of, physical therapy and physical health. And so I decided to shut it down and ever since then, I have been building my movement now, which is to help women learn how to lean into their boldness so that they can start building their legacies and actively turning their visions into reality now.
Wow. Wow. I mean, most people wouldn't dare. What kept you going along, Dr. O? I mean, what or who gave you the courage to leap without proof of the next step?
This is actually the literal basis of my method, the bold method. But first, I want to say I believe every woman was born bold. You just have to remember who you were before the world told you to tone it down or to trust in external factors versus listening to your own inner voice. And so, what got me through, in all honesty, was myself and my ability to rely on the bold method, which is break, own, lean, and dominate. First thing I had to do was I had to break the outdated narratives that were holding me back from the life that I really truly wanted, from the legacy that I knew that I was meant to leave. And those outdated narratives were that I was supposed to run this successful clinic. I was supposed to franchise, the physical therapy clinic into multiple locations and continue forward making this degree that I spent years building out and earning count. So I had to let go of that. And then the O is own your vision. I had to own the fact that where I wanted to go and where I was at was no longer aligned. And the craziest part is that it didn't make sense, right? Like when you take bold action and you're a visionary and you have this vision that's bigger than you, nothing makes sense at first, right? For you to shut down a clinic or for you to let go of a job that is making over six figures. All of these actions don't make sense. So our natural tendency is to push it away. But what I challenge you to do is own that vision. Say it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. Because the more that you own that vision, the more that you're telling the world that you are ready to actually receive it.
Mm, yeah, it really feels almost electric. Really, I mean, I think that choice, it doesn't just shift careers, it reshapes identities. And I really loved that you mentioned that we women, we are born bold. It's just that um, it really kind of goes unseen or unheard, kind of suppressed within.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Well, I was gonna say it really does. Society does not want women to be able to speak up and stand in their power. They would prefer to us to be pretty and sit quietly and just go along with the blueprint or the box that the world wants us to be in. But there is a new generation of women who are rising up, who are deciding that they want more out of life and who are not waiting for permission to go after it. Those women, they were born that way. And so are you. The listeners that are listening to this right now, you were born bold. It's just you've been conditioned to conceal that boldness. And now it's time to activate it and let it out.
Oh, those are some words of encouragement in there, Dr. Rowe. And another beautiful line that you have said is success without alignment is just a prettier cage. I mean, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but it's really poetic in there, Dr. Rowe. So, um, how exactly? I mean, what exactly you mean by that?
So, success means nothing if it doesn't feel what it should feel like to you.
Mhm.
Success is something that is relative to the beholder of it. Success can look like six figures, it can look like a suburban home with a beautiful family, it could look like solo traveling for the rest of your life, right? So there are different versions of success. And the world has tried so hard to make us choose one path that has already been created and laid out for us, that is safe, that is secure and that we know where we're going to end up. And that security of that path is the very cage that is holding you back from the life that you truly were meant to live, from the legacy that you actually were meant to lead. It doesn't come from safety and security. It comes from choosing to build your own path,
Mm.
choosing to overcome your mindset blocks and your own self imposed limitations on your life, choosing that you were meant for more and being bold enough to actually go after it. So, success
Mm.
that the world wants you to think is good enough, that you should settle for, that is just a cage because it is the only cap to the true potential and the true power that you hold within you.
Wow. Wow. I definitely get it. I definitely get it. And Dr. Wu, some would argue that isn't survival first, it's like, isn't paying the bills or, you know, just surviving sometimes more important that than alignment. Like, you cannot prioritize alignment every time. Sometimes you have to give up and, do and maybe succumb to the circumstances in there.
So, what I tell my clients who are looking to pivot into another career or ditch their corporate job to hop into entrepreneurship is you can always start aligning your life in the very small actions that you take on a day to day basis. Getting into alignment doesn't have to look like deciding tomorrow that you're going to quit your six-figure job and just start up this new side hustle with no basis and no budget for that, right? So there are limitations to how big you can go based on the platform that you have built for yourself. For example, one of my clients who left her very high paying corporate job to start her own business within just 1 week, she had already been saving for that time because she was starting to get into alignment with the fact that her life was no longer fitting her. Right? So that journey looked differently, but it's because that voice, right? That voice and that yearning and that searching continuously crept up at her. And so she knew in her mind that there had to be a change. And so that is what led her to start saving for when that moment would be. So, what I would say is make sure that you have everything that you need in the job that you're working and the life that you're living, but take the smallest actionable step possible on a day to day basis that is going to get you more aligned, that is going to bring that vision that you have and you're playing in your mind over and over again
Mhm.
closer to your reality now.
Of course, of course. I think this is exactly where the conversation gets, real or raw because boldness isn't always, glamorous. It can be messy, it can be intimidating, scary, yet it seems like, it's the only way to get free. And that's kind of an irony or I should say counterintuitive in there.
Well, actually, I talk about this in my book, which is called Born Bold. It'll be released November 1st. And in one of the chapters, I talk about how a butterfly that undergoes transformation, people always describe it as this beautiful emergence where the butterfly just breaks right through the cocoon and flies away like completely free. It is not that easy. It's actually really freaking hard for that butterfly to get out of that cocoon. The butterfly first has to literally digest itself, break down its entire physical form, and then recreate cell by cell its own body. after that, it has to push and pull for hours to tug and rip itself out of that cocoon where then it can be set free. So, a lot of people think that being bold and taking action is a one and done process. But it's not easy, right? You have
Mm.
to work for this life. You have to make change down to the cellular level so that the world knows and the universe is aware that you are ready to step into what is next for you, that you were prepared for that next chapter and for that elevation. You cannot just expect transformation to happen overnight, and you have to be willing to fight for that vision that you have in your mind to actually come to be.
Mm, that's powerful. That's powerful. And of course, congratulations for your upcoming book, Dr. Rowe. Um,
Mm.
okay. Now, I think this is also very much prevalent in there. Now, you have worked with high achieving women who struggle with people pleasing. It's such a very challenging situation to be in. Um, but also, at the same time, Dr. Rowe, isn't there value in adapting and compromising in business? Like, once again, if I come to um, the previous, contradictory or a bit of a nuanced view here, can being too bold actually backfire?
That's a great question.
A throw of a paradox in there. That's what I feel.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I like to reiterate the fact that boldness is not what everyone anticipates it to be, right? It's not in your face. It's not being extra or aggressive or super super direct. It's really just about doing what is most aligned with you, your life, your wants, and your desires. Some people might receive that as a negative way of being, but
Mm,
really, that's just them projecting their own insecurities onto you because they're not bold enough to move forward and to actually say what you want and go after it. So, do I believe that you can be too bold, that you can go after what you want too much? No, absolutely not. But do I think that boldness has a negative connotation that I'm actively working towards changing with the movement that I'm building? Yeah, totally.
that's very well handled, Dr. O. And I also, yeah, of course, I think we are told to collaborate, but also to be authentic, and it's quite natural in there that sometimes those feel like they are pulling us in opposite directions. Okay, and let's talk about the first step in that staircase. So now, if someone who is listening to both of us talking on this, and especially a woman, and she's feeling trapped in her own prettier cage, what's the very first bold step she can take, they can take, even if the rest of the staircase is still invisible?
The first step that you can do to take a small little step towards the life that you want to build, bringing your vision to life and being bold is to start listening to that inner voice. A lot of people have worked so hard to push away their inner voice that they can't even hear anything except the voices of other people. family, friends, coworkers, even things that a random commenter said on social media. The first thing you need to do is you need to build a filter. As your thoughts come in, as your beliefs come in, ask yourself, is this a belief that I hold, or is this something that I was told? Is this something that I truly, truly feel, or is it something that was taught to me? And what is true and what is not? As you start to build that filter out on a daily basis, then your own inner voice starts to get amplified. Then you can actually hone in on what it is that you want, on what vision it is that you withhold, and on what your next steps are going to be. That is how you take a step, even without the staircase, and watch it start to build.
Hmm. Of course, of course. And how can they hold on to that boldness? You know, I can start with it, but um how do I make sure that, I'm holding on to it, when there's so much happening around me, there are definitely trials of life, burnout, rejection, uncertainty, inevitably they show up. How can I hold on to that?
So, the thing about boldness is once you start, it's almost like you can't go back to how you were before. It's a domino effect. So you take one bold action. Maybe you send an email to a coworker that you've been wanting to connect with for a while, but things didn't really end in the way that you planned. So you send this email and then you end up having lunch with this coworker. While you're at lunch with the coworker, they mention that they have someone who's really interested in photography or hiring a photographer. You've been thinking about starting to work on your camera skills and building out your own side hustle. She makes the connection. Then your next bold action is to actually follow up. You follow up, you just sign your first client, all by starting with one bold action, all by choosing to lean into your inner voice. That is how you stay bold. Because once you start being bold, life starts to align in the way that you have always wanted. So much to the point where you won't have an issue staying there. You will be craving more and more because being bold is just being in alignment with yourself. And that alignment is something that is irreversible.
Wow. That was beautiful, Afro. That was really, really beautiful. And of course, if our listeners, if they would like to connect with you and get access to the wonderful resources and wisdom that you're providing, what should be the easiest way?
Yeah, so you can go right to my website, theboldmethod.com. You can follow me on Instagram at the.boldcoach, and I'm sure I will put this at the end of the video. But also, I have a really quick quiz where you can find out what is blocking your bold and get actionable steps on how to move boldly through that in as little as 2 minutes. So I will be sure to share that with all the listeners here so that you can start being bold right after this episode.
Super, super. That's a great first step. And I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes for all of you listeners. And I think what we have heard today, got a glimpse here, isn't just a story about business. It is about life, listeners. It's about being bold enough to believe in a vision no one else can see it. It's also about dismantling the cages we build for ourselves. Those virtual cages in there. No matter how pretty they look from the outside, So, to everyone listening here with us, you don't need the whole staircase. You just need to claim that first step. And maybe, like Dr. Rowe, you'll find that the boldest move isn't building more, it's finally choosing you. So, Dr. Rowe, thank you so much for giving us this energy and reigniting or maybe igniting the spark in there within all of us through your work, through your words, and through your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sana.
Of course, of course. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and giving your precious time to listening to this episode on the BizBlend podcast. Until next time, be bold, be true, keep climbing, even if the staircase hasn't shown itself yet. Thank you.